So hello everybody. So welcome to today's class. So alright everyone, today we're going to be starting something new in web development. We're going to be talking about the first of the three fundamental languages that we use when creating websites, which is HTML. So this is it here, HTML. So now we said something before about HTML. We said HTML means hypertext markup language. If you remember, we had a talk about it. It means hypertext markup language. And HTML, as said before, is used to tell the browser how to structure content and display it. So these are what we talked about in our last class, and we're going to go into more of this in this class. So before we touch any serious coding, we need to understand what HTML is and what its job actually does. So by the end of this class, we're going to be able to do something. So we're going to be able to, sorry, give me a sec. Let me just get out our objectives. So we're going to be able to, first of all, objectives. We're going to be able to, one, know what HTML is. So know what HTML is. That's the first thing we're going to be able to do. That's our first objective. And second thing, we're going to be able to understand what HTML tags are. So we're going to understand what HTML tags are. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to also know what HTML can and cannot do. So we are going to know what HTML can and cannot do. So this is what we're going to be doing before we go into any real coding, probably in the next class. So we're not going to do any kind of crazy memorizing. We're just going to try to understand it. So now, before we even move forward the HTML, I think it's good we revisit some old topics we've had earlier, as in what is a website, or basically what happens when we open a website. So when you open a website, I'm going to come down here and open a simple website for us. We open a website. What do you think is happening? What are you actually seeing? I mean, as the website is loading, we know that the website sends a request to a server somewhere. We have discussed that in the last class. And the website sends a request to the server looking for content with this name. In this case, it's autodev.site, whatever name is written there. And it brings back a result which it displays as a website or a web page. The result might consist of text, images, buttons, videos, links, and it's not magical. A website is not magic. It's just a bunch of files. For example, this website we see here, this website, the files for it are let me come down so I can go over to the files for it. So the files for it are in our document. Okay, so these are the files for the website here. Eka. This is the file for this particular project. So a website is a compilation of web pages that are stored in a file. Now these files are uploaded to a server. And in this server, the server has a hosting account. We're going to go into that later. But just so you know, whenever we search for a website on the browser, whether Google, whether Safari, we know that it's pulling information from that file and your browser reads it to display what we see here as a website. So now, the main file that your browser needs first is your HTML file. So are websites complicated? Yes, websites are complicated. They are complicated. They are a bit organized, but they're also simple if you know how they work. So hypertext, we said that HTML stands for hypertext markup language. That's what we said earlier. Let me scroll down. So the hyper there or the hypertext there means text that can link to other text, like links, like clicking on a link. The markup means that we're marking that text with labels, and the language is a set of rules that a browser can understand. Again, I'm just explaining here, so we don't need to memorize all these things. You probably will never need them in your life. You probably never hear them unless you're getting a job interview. But in most cases, you will never hear these things again. I'm just bringing it out there. Now, I also like us to note. So I want us to also make a note just in case. Again, we won't really need this information all that much, but it's good to know it. HTML is not a programming language. This is very important that we understand this. HTML is not a programming language. A lot of people call it programming languages, but it's not. It's a markup language. So it's not a programming language. It's a markup language. That's what it's called. It's a markup language. And the reason why we say it's not a programming language is that it doesn't think. The reason is HTML doesn't think. It doesn't calculate, at least on a basic level. It doesn't calculate. It doesn't do any logic. Doesn't perform any logic. And it doesn't make decisions too. And it doesn't make, so it doesn't do all these things. So we can't really call it a programming language. It doesn't have any underlying logic attached to it. The only thing it does is structure content. So as I said here, it tells the browser how to structure content and display. That is all it does. It doesn't have any real underlying logic like future programming language, real programming language we're going to discuss later. It doesn't have all those. So basically, what HTML does is it tells the browser what something is. That's what it does. If it sees a file, it tells it, okay, this is a file. This is what that file shows. That's HTML. So now, what can HTML be used for? HTML can be used to display content. If we come over to our website, so we're going to go over to a website that we created here. Let's open up our website. Now, for all those in the class, we discussed in the last class on how to create a folder on File Explorer and how to create our HTML project and run it on our Visual Studio Code. So I'm sure all of you know how to do it by now. So let's just do that. Open up our Visual Studio Code. In my case, mine is going to have some content there because I've been doing quite a bit, but yours is going to be empty. So I'm going to ignore those content and just make it clear, make it open. Create something, empty. And I'm going to open this empty thing that we just created. So let me open this HTML code and run a brand new page. Good. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to say this page is going to be empty. So this is an empty page. And the file is called about.html, which is here. Now, the first thing I want to teach you guys is how to create a HTML file. To create a HTML file is actually really simple. All you have to do is come over to File, which is here. Come over to File. Then click on New File. You click on New File. You're going to open a pop-up here. We're going to type the name. We're going to type this name as, okay, let me do that again. File, New File, dot HTML. That's all. Then you click on Enter. It tells you to create the file to create it. Now, note a bunch of notes that we're going to have here. I'm going to put this out on the document. All HTML files are always okay, or all HTML files have the .html extension at the end of the file. Just like how we know we have PDF files and we have Word documents where you have, like, let me say file.pdf, something like that, a PDF file. HTML files are also named .html. This tells our Visual Studio Code, which is our code editor, that this is the HTML file. Very important. You don't name a HTML file something else. You name it .html. The name can be any name .html. Another thing we also need to note, very important, is that the main homepage or the homepage is always named index.html. The home page is always named index.html. Now, I know that this might be a bit of a confusing concept to grasp. I'm not even going to bother explaining it because it's not something that needs a lot of explanation. It's very straightforward. The home page is the main page. Any website have the home page, their main page. This is the home page of this website. It's always named index.html. You can name every other page what you want. If I go to my code editor, you'll see there that you see index.html here. It's always the main page. You don't name your main page main, or you don't name it home or something. Name it index.html. Every other page, you can name it what you want. About me.html, contact me.html, new folder, it doesn't matter. but your new page, your home page, your main home page is always index.html. Some people call it the root page. So it's also called the root page. I feel we need to get that in there too. It is also called the root page or root file. So it's always named index.html. All these are very important. So now going back to our code editor, I said that HTML is used to display content on a browser. So now I'm sure a lot of us have used Word documents before. I've all used Word documents before. It's not a new document. A lot of people have used Word documents. Now, if I want to create a header in a Word document, what do I do? All I have to do is highlight this text here, right? Highlight it and then maybe increase the font size to this and then make it bold. And now it's a header, a big header, right? So these are ways in which we are telling our list of Word documents that okay, um, we want to do this to this content. Everything we write here, everything we write in plain English is called content. And we're telling the browser that okay, we want to do this with this content, or in this case, we're telling our Word document, I want to do this with this content. So make it bigger, make it bold, make it italic. All these things are how we structure the Word document. The same thing applies in coding. So let me say, for example, I write something like this is a header. If I save this, I have this out, I get this saved out. This is just plain English. It's just like anything you write in a Word document. If I open this, it's going to show us this. Just normal English, plain English. So now what HTML does, and we're not going to go deeper into this in our next class or subsequent class, but what it does that it has a string of instructions that it gives to the browser regarding content. So in this case, let me imagine I want a header. Now we all know what a header is, just like a big text that is used in front. Like for example, if I go back to this normal website, this is the header. You can see it, a website designer, create Akuche. So a header is just a big text that's meant to like at the top of the page that says something is bold, is large. I can use HTML code here, and then inside here I can also write this is a header. And when I write this, this is the header too, which was exactly what I wrote in the last one or the one I did up there. Sorry. Okay. This is the header. Now, these are the two headers we have here. So we have this is the header, and we also have this is the header. The same exact text. But if I save it, come over to my browser and I refresh. Now, just to be clear, to save a document or to save anything you do on your VS Code is Control S. I think I need to also put that down in the document we have here. So to save your HTML file in Visual Studio Code, the VS Code, use Control plus S. So Control S. And to refresh your browser, use Control plus R. So if you want to refresh your browser to see whatever update you just made, you use Control R to refresh your browser. At what I mean by refreshing your browser is just make it load again, make it load from beginning. Or you can press this circle here, it does the exact same thing. It loads up your browser, so it refreshes it. And now you can see that this header is big, is bold, is large. It has this kind of large effect. You know that this is the header there, even though it's the same thing. So what this H1 did in this code, you can see that it basically told the browser that okay, this is a header, make it bigger, make it wider, make it bolder. So that's what it did. So this is how HTML works. It basically tells the browser how to structure content. It's also used to add things to the website. It's just to add things. For example, let's say if I come back to my website now, and again, all these things are just for fundamental understanding. We're going to deal into them later. But I can see now I have a picture in that folder. If I come down here and I just write a piece of code, I can actually add that picture. So I can add that picture in my code document. And when I save it, come back here and refresh, you see the picture here. So you can add things with HTML, you can add videos with HTML, you can add text with HTML, you can add links with HTML to your browser. So let's look at it this way. If a website is a human being, if a full website like this website is a human being, again, I'm just using weird analogies, then HTML is like the skeleton. It's like the bones, it's the structure, it's what keeps it up, it's the bones. So HTML is the skeleton of the website. Now, this HTML, we're going to have, because HTML is divided into three parts, so we're going to look at it too. So HTML, let me say components of HTML. Let me make that centered. So we're going to have this. Now, for those of you in the class, the document is going to be available for you guys to download if you need it for extra studies or to read up. So components of HTML. So HTML have three main components. That's three main components that makes up HTML. There are three main components that makes up HTML. Namely, the first one is called so HTML attributes. So we're going to be discussing fundamentally on HTML tags. We won't really deal with attributes and elements now. We're going to discuss tags first because that's the most important one. So that's what we're going to start with first. So HTML tags are the building blocks of HTML. Just like how, when you're teaching us English, after we're younger, we're like, the now is the name of the person. That's how fundamental HTML is. The HTML tags are the building block of HTML. And the things we're going to notice about HTML tags are they always come inside or they're always written inside brackets. It's kind of bracket. If you notice, if you come back to our code base, you see that a bracket is used, as you can see. So they're always written inside brackets. And they are not case sensitive. What I mean by this is that the same way I wrote this in small letter, I can also write it in capital letter. I can write this in capital letter too. And if I save it and check it out, we'll see that nothing changed. So whether I write it in small letter or capital letter, it doesn't really matter. They are not case sensitive. You can write it anyhow you want it. So these are what we're going to focus on primarily in our next class. We're going to discuss more on HTML tags in our next class. So I don't want to go too deeply into them so as not to confuse you guys. But to give you a very good case study explanation, they are just they can be defined as just a label that tells so it's just a label that tells the browser what a piece of content is. Just like how in this case, this HTML code here told the browser that this content inside here is a header. So it tells the browser what the content is. This HTML tag told the browser that this link here is for an image. Tells the browser what a piece of content is. And we have different kinds of content. We have headers, we have paragraph, we have images, we have videos. So it's just a label that tells the browser that okay, this one is a header or this one is a paragraph or this one is an image. So that's it. So this is what we're going to discuss here. We're going to stop here for this class. In our next class, we're going to go deeper into HTML tags. So now, before we close, I also want to just make a few bring it out into what HTML cannot do. This is also very important. I think you also need to know this. What HTML cannot do. So I won't get confused on the capabilities of HTML. So let's quickly discuss this. What HTML cannot do. So HTML, it cannot Okay, let me make this left. Okay. So HTML cannot, number one, add animations. I don't know if you have seen all these sites that have these beautiful animations. It cannot do that. Make websites interactive. It doesn't make websites interactive. It doesn't validate logic. What I mean by validate logic is, for example, now, if you want to sign up somewhere, like let me say you want to sign up to your Facebook account, the moment you click sign up, that logic that uses your username and uses your password to sign you into your profile on Facebook, HTML cannot do that. It's not capable of doing that. It cannot handle user interactions intelligently. They can't handle user interactions intelligently. It's just used to add content. So all these things it doesn't do, how do we do them? You see, this is where for all the things HTML can't do, this is where other languages like CSS and JavaScript, which we discussed in our last class. Remember, I said there are three: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This is where they come into play. So this is where they do their part too. So HTML is the easiest of the three. I'm just going to come out and say this is the easiest of the three. It's beginner friendly, it's forgiving, it's readable in plain English, it's used almost everywhere. And you can open it with your Visual Studio Code. So that's it. And every website I've ever visited in one way or the other started with HTML, has a background in HTML, including websites like Facebook, Instagram, even some banking websites. They have it. They all rely on the same basic tags that I'm going to teach you. So it's not just about coding today. Today is not just about coding. Today is about understanding. We're trying to understand what HTML is. So in our next class, we'll start with actual HTML. We'll break down tags properly, and you probably start looking towards building your first real web page if you're a fast learner. So if today makes you feel confident in what HTML is, then that's success. HTML is simple. All these tutorials on the internet just makes it look scary. So we're going to meet in our next class. So we're going to go into more detailed conversations about HTML. I'm going to start a lot more practical aspects to HTML, especially HTML tags. So I'll see you all in the next class.